This is the CBS Evening News with Russ Mitchell.
And good evening. It has been another day of violence and uncertainty in Egypt. As the protests continue, the government continues to hold its ground while pressure grows for President Mubarak to resign. Let's take a look at the latest. The U.S. government says it will evacuate Americans from Egypt. The official death toll from 6 days of protests now stands at least 97. Hundreds of Muslim militants have escaped from Egyptian prisons. And the army is guarding the country's famed antiquities after threats of looting. We have a team of correspondents covering this ever-changing story. And we begin tonight with Elizabeth Palmer in Cairo.
It's now day 6 of these demonstrations, and the protesters haven't given up, in spite of a curfew that was supposed to have started at 4 o'clock today, but is pretty much being ignored totally. A dramatic turn of events tonight in the square that's been at the center of this popular uprising. Egypt's bookish Nobel Peace Prize winner Mohammed El-Baradei defied the curfew to come and address the crowd. His message? It's all over for President Hosni Mubarak. But so far, there's no sign that Mubarak is going anywhere. Today, he continued swearing in senior officials to serve alongside the newly appointed vice president and prime minister. A government reshuffle that hasn't impressed the protesters.
He is trying to cheat us, and these two persons, the prime minister and the vice president, are worse than him. We don't want all this regime. No way.
The supposedly fierce guardians of that regime, the army, are a puzzle. They're arresting looters, but embracing the demonstrators who, for their part, have accepted the soldiers as popular heroes. But there are mixed messages from the army, and very loud ones, as we found out during an earlier report today. Just in the last couple of minutes, we've seen an extraordinary show. I don't know if you can hear me. Those are F-16 aircraft. They are supplied to the Egyptian military by the United States, and they've been flying over the crowd, which once again is growing in Freedom Square. There's still no explanation of why those fighter jets repeatedly buzzed the demonstration. But if the intent was to disperse the crowd, it didn't work. The atmosphere among the demonstrators in the square tonight is upbeat. I would say somewhere between a party and a religious gathering, because it's quite noticeable that Egypt's Islamists are taking up a lot more room in the crowds recently. Russ?
Elizabeth, we saw those pictures of El-Baradei in the streets. How likely is he to get the support of the people as the next leader?
Not very. He's been living outside of the country for many years. He is a diplomat more than he is a seasoned, tough politician. But there was some surprise when the Muslim Brotherhood, the big religious organization here, said that he would make a good negotiator if there were a team organizing a transition for Mubarak to leave power peacefully. So one way or another, he could be prominent, but not as the next president.
Elizabeth Palmer in Cairo. Thank you. Of course, these are scary times for citizens across Egypt, especially those in the capital of Cairo. Mark Strassman now on another fight that's taking a huge toll on the innocent.
Across chaotic Cairo, there's another revolt. Opportunists rising against the rule of law. In a frenzy of burning and looting, mobs have stormed supermarkets and stores, hauling away whatever they could carry. This country is very close to collapse, this man says. People will starve if the riots and looting continue. In this city of 18 million people, twice the size of New York, tanks patrol the streets, but there's not a cop in sight. So throughout Cairo, vulnerable residents now arm themselves with sticks, bats, and knives, and set up checkpoints to keep out strangers, and in most cases, cameras. But in Cairo's Douai neighborhood, we finally found a group willing to talk, including Mahmoud Hamdi, an artist with a new tool.
It's a knife, but I never used it before. I never carried it before. I hope I will never use it.
There are neighborhoods like this throughout Cairo, people protecting what they have because they can't count on anyone else. As one man told me, right now there is no government. We are the government.
What is this? What are we living in? Is this like a country?
This is Hussein, a photographer who's part of the new neighborhood militia in Dohi. His group's protecting what they have and guarding those they love.
If the wrong people come down this street, these guys mean business.
Yeah, definitely. No one is going inside. People will die to go inside. Either we die or they die.
He means it. They all do. Suddenly in this city, nothing feels safe. Looters even attacked the National Museum, home of the world's greatest Egyptian treasures. 2 mummies were smashed. This may be a new day for Egypt, but these are also scary nights.
One report says police will be back on the streets tomorrow. Now understand something, most people in those Cairo neighborhoods want a new government, want a fresh start for Egypt. But given all the chaos that's out there, they also just want to survive this revolt. Russ?
Mark Strassman in Cairo. Thank you. At the White House today, President Obama was briefed on the crisis, and he continued a weekend series of high-level phone calls, including to leaders in Turkey, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Britain. And his Secretary of State took to the airwaves to set forth the official administration position. Cheryl Atkinson has more on that.
Today, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton arrived in Haiti, but much of her attention remains focused on Egypt. On Face the Nation, she was careful not to take sides other than the side of democracy.
What we are focused on now is a transition that will meet the needs of the Egyptian people and that will truly establish democracy.
The U.S. faces a delicate balancing act, not to tilt too heavily in favor of old ally Mubarak's autocratic regime or the protesters.
If you weigh in too heavily on the part of the protesters, not only are you not sure where they're headed, but you send a signal to our friends and allies around the world that we are a fickle ally and maybe are not trustworthy.
Egypt has been a moderating influence in the Arab world. It has a peace treaty with Israel. It's been an important broker for Israeli-Palestinian peace. It's cracked down on Islamic terrorists and defended against Iran's influence. Many worry about how the U.S. will be affected if things in Egypt get even worse.
Worse is bad for us from the perspective of what the opportunities it gives to al-Qaeda, it gives to the Islamists, and the possibilities that we could wind up with a very hostile regime in Egypt.
There are economic concerns as well. Violent protests in the city of Suez near the Suez Canal are making investors nervous. Egypt controls the canal, which links the oil-rich Gulf states to the Western world. 35,000 ships pass through the canal each year, including 2,700 crude oil tankers. The next fastest water route between Europe and Asia is 3 months and 12,000 miles longer around Africa. So far, the protests haven't disrupted canal traffic.
Crude oil futures rose more than $3 a barrel on Friday. Analysts worry oil could go from about $89 a barrel to more than $120. Gas is already 34 cents a gallon higher than last year here in the U.S. The last thing U.S. officials want now is a disruption in oil supplies. Russ?
Cheryl Atkinson in Washington, thanks a lot. The crisis in Egypt is already having a disastrous impact on that country's tourism industry, which attracted more than 12 million visitors in 2009 and nearly $7 billion in revenue. As Tony Guided tells us, visitors caught up in the turmoil are doing everything they can to get out.
Mohammed Magdi is relieved to be back in the United States after a harrowing visit to his mother in Egypt.
I stay inside, I can get outside, I can smell the smoke, and it was very dangerous.
Magdi's flight was delayed 10 hours. He was lucky to get out. Continued unrest has stranded thousands of travelers. The country's national carrier, Egypt Air, canceled 25 flights Sunday. The only American carrier with direct service to Cairo, Delta Airlines, shut it down.
I'm glad to be home to see my children also.
14 American tourists spent Sunday marooned in Luxor. They're traveling with Regina Fraser of PBS's Grannies on Safari, seen here in Morocco. Thursday night, the tour was in Cairo. Fraser told me it was scary.
There were just hundreds of people running towards our bus, and you could hear gunfire, you could hear people chanting and screaming.
The State Department issued a warning today recommending that U.S. citizens avoid travel to Egypt and advising those already there to consider leaving as soon as they can safely do so. Fraser's group wants out, but repeated calls to the U.S. Embassy in Cairo, she says, were fruitless.
I got someone today, and he said, just a moment, I'll transfer you. And it was to a recording that said, please go to our website. There hasn't been internet in Egypt for about 3.5 days.
Some 75,000 Americans live in Egypt. Another 270,000 or so visit each year. Tourism is Egypt's top industry. It accounts for 1 in 8 jobs in a country racked by high unemployment. Pictures like these are bound to hurt, as is this observation from an American tourist stranded at his Cairo hotel.
Tunis here, Cairo here. No problem, no problem. Big problem.
Late word from the State Department. Starting tomorrow, the U.S. Embassy in Cairo will arrange flights out of Egypt to European cities for stranded American tourists. They're advised, if they want to get on those flights, to call or email the State Department in Washington, but that could be a problem. Both cell phone and internet service in Egypt has been spotty at best. Russ?
Tony Guida here in New York. Thank you.